The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have Fansets as its presenting sponsor. Fansets is the home for amazing pin collectibles with over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month. Stay tuned for a special discount code worth 10% off your next order at fansets.com. Fansets, our pins have character. More hijinks, maybe? Yes? Is M'Benga having a trip? Or are we experiencing a reality-bending spatial phenomenon? That's what the Doctor needs to discover when the crew are transformed into the characters of The Kingdom of Elysium, a book M'Benga has been reading to his daughter Rukiya, who has suddenly also disappeared. M'Benga and Hammer, the only two crew members unaffected, must discover if there is a fairy behind this fairy tale, or is this just the effect of a failed experiment to save Rukiya's life? Today, the Enterprise crew gets to cosplay a medieval-esque fairy tale land as they are hijacked by space consciousness. Hammer shows that science can be magic, Una scores some bullseyes, Ortegas is handy with a blade, and once again, a Doctor's child becomes an ethereal space being.
If you'd like to follow the show on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Discovering Trek, or on Facebook, you can join the conversation on Camp Kittimer. After a few simple questions, our admins, Haley, Jackie, and Fark, will let you in. A reminder that this episode of Discovering Trek provides spoilers. If you have not watched yet, head over to Paramount Plus, watch the episode, and head back. Failure to do so leaves you open to spoilers.
I'm Matthew Simone, and I'm joined by Yvette Blackmon-Tom and Tamia Harper. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
Totally good. Really happy to be here.
Tamia, I was looking at the article that you had posted on when we were chatting on Slack, the blog for Akela Cooper.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I was wondering if you wanted to chat about that, because it's such a heartfelt reflection, a personal reflection on writing this episode.
It was really a wonderful thing to read. I was so enamored of the father-daughter relationship in this episode. And then to find, she basically wrote in the blog that, this episode was like a love letter to her parents, basically, because her parents are the ones who got her started watching Trek. Like Trek was required viewing in her house, and all forms of Trek too, I mean, it wasn't just like TOS, or it wasn't just one type of Trek, one series, and how she wrote her parents' names, like her parents' names are now canonized in Trek canon. And I thought that was so cool. And that's Deborah and
Ridley.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was so cool. I mean, I just thought it was a beautiful article, because I think a lot of us either, if we weren't raised in Trek that way with our family, we want to raise our families in Trek,
Yes.
Or we find our chosen family in Trek, so I just thought it was a really beautiful post that she did.
Glad you shared it with us.
Yeah, thanks for finding that. That was really cool. I was looking her up, and I saw that she had written episodes of Grimm. So it's like doing fantasy writing already. So I'm like, oh, it makes sense why it kind of blends into this world.
Yeah.
But she's got that one part where she had mentioned that in a conversation with her dad, I guess she had said something about wanting to change an episode of Star Trek, and he had said something similar as M'Benga says in this one. I was like, well, when you grow up, you could write your own endings. And now she's here writing Star Trek episodes, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
I love the fact that she said that it was a love letter to her parents, a kid's love letter to their parents. Because I think I sent it to you that I had already wrote that in my notes, that this was how Rukiya wanted, she was so worried about her dad, even though the whole thing was about him trying to find a cure for her whole thing was, did you have fun, Daddy? I was watching you. You look like you have fun. Did you have fun? And I that part just broke my heart, The hardest part about parenting, for what I've found, is parenting adults. It's the worst, because you have to let them kind of fall, and you have to let them make their own decisions. And most of the time you can't help, you have to let them, just go out and do it on their own. And that's really tough. People think toddlers are tough. That's nothing compared to 20-year-olds, who think they're adults And but yeah, I totally, it hit me in a lot of the feels this episode.
Yvette, I saw the photo you sent where you're like, I literally thought this, or you circled it in the notes, right? Love letter to dad.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure at first how they were going to play this, because I was like, is he just under the, because he breathes in that gas?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, is he just having like an hallucination? Like, what is this? And until Hammer is unaffected. And I was like,
Unaffected,
wait a second. Other points from this one, like, I guess generally we all seem to be in agreement that this was a fun episode and we liked it. Anything else that really stood out?
Oh my God, there's so much. Oh my goodness. I don't even know where to put all of this stuff. I mean, first of all, it was a great TOS-esque type of episode, because they always did these crazy fantasy type episodes. So I love that part about it. I mean, the Easter eggs, we've been waiting for this episode mainly because I know when we were on the cruise, they had the museum and these costumes were in there. And then the costumes were in Chicago, and then they were at the Paley Center for the premiere. And I've been waiting for this, and I've been like, oh, this book, it's got to be a part of this book. We're going to see something about this book. And then we finally got it. And I don't know if you guys, I think I've shared it with Tamia, the cover of the book. The cover of the book is The Elysian Kingdom by Benny Russell.
Benny Russell, yeah.
I was like, what? What is happening? I had watched it on my phone. I had, people were talking about it on the mothership this morning, but I didn't have the picture, and they were saying that nobody would break it. We have a spoiler column, but no one would say it. And I was like, are they saving it? Or maybe they're too high up. And I was like, when I get home, I'm taking a picture so I can send it out. And I sent it out, and people were like, ah. So it oh my God, that was everything. I couldn't believe that. It was so good. Are these wormhole aliens? They don't believe in linear time. So
fascinating. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
Who was that? That was
Scott Jensen. Scott Jensen blew our mind when he dropped that I was like, discussion today.
Think about that.
I know. I was like, oh, non-linear, out of space and out of time, aliens, there's a funky wormhole. I was like, Scott, you might be on to something, buddy.
Right. I was like, you just upended all my thoughts on this episode. So yeah, it was crazy.
Nice.
I love this. I love this episode because it was so much fun and it was so poignant and tender at the same time. I mean, what a beautiful, delicate balance that they just really pulled off masterfully, because none of the humor seemed forced. I mean, it was just funny. There are some brilliant performances in this episode. I think the whole crew did a great job, but I mean, I'm saving that part for when we give out the medals, if we're going to give out the medals, because I have some medals to give out. What I really love, so it starts with the very beginning, the very opening scene between Mbenga and his daughter Rukiya. And it was so tender and just so precious and so special. And I was already in the feels, like from that moment. Just for me, this depiction of Black love, it just means everything to me. And, there are two Black women who wrote this episode. So that's it, and it was directed by a white woman, so it was this woman power all the way around.
Right.
I mean, it's just natural, right? It's just Black folks being Black folks.
That's
right?
it.
But but it's crazy that still in this day and age, just watching a father and a daughter interact the way fathers and daughters do is still considered an exceptional thing. Right? It's an exceptional thing because that is not the depiction of Black love that I get to see in most media.
Right.
And so therefore it is out of the ordinary. It is extraordinary, right? To see this depiction of it, like most Black parents are loving on their kids every day in and out, and we don't get it, right? We don't see that. Those are not the images that are chosen to be reflected about our people. So it was just, that is one of the most powerful aspects of this whole episode to me. It's going to be gold to me forever because of that alone. And the rest of the artistry that took place on here is just icing on the cake for me.
That's it. Definitely. I think it's going to be like a classic, an instant classic, because some of the lines are like so memorable.
Oh my gosh.
You'll be saying those lines. They'll be in memes. The memes will be crazy for this episode. I know it. It's going to be classic. It definitely will.
Remember, it was like, it felt like my brain was being squeezed out of my nose. And she was like, I did that to a man once.
I was like, okay.
I want to know that story.
Right. I know, right?
I loved that they put this fine, for me, in my science nerdy heart. I loved that they kept this fine balance where they made it like a fantasy world, but it was still clearly like within the Enterprise. Like the Enterprise wasn't changed so much that you couldn't see like the screens and all the rest of it. And when they start talking about magic, Hammer jumps in there and he's like, no, it's not magic, it's science, right?
Science.
He's got that little tool where he cuts the bars and he like blows on them afterwards. He's like, and I was like, this is hilarious.
But in the end, he goes, I am a wizard.
I am a wizard. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm the one who casts all the spells.
I love that.
Yeah. And like you said, that they have that like that funny tone, and the actors leaned into it so much.
Oh yeah.
And and they got Pike could kind of stand off to the side because he's like the coward in this one, and so he's not forefront in the episode. He can kind of take a back seat. Yeah. And but they really just fell into the roles. They must have had so much fun.
It felt like they were falling into their comfortability with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like they were really syncing as actors. I'm not putting any shade on the other episodes. It's just this one felt like, this was their, all right, this is it. We're really into it. This is the family. This is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing these for the next 7 years. This is us. It just felt so, like they knew each other, relaxed with each other. It felt good. It felt like a feel good type of cast moment for them that we were watching. Mm-hmm. I just loved it, and because the comedic timing between Anson Mount and Melissa Navia is gold.
Yes.
Absolute gold. I mean, it started from when the first scene of them on the ship. She's going, are you going to say the thing?
I know, right?
You're just waiting. He's going, hit it. I'm hitting it.
Yeah, hitting it. Nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening.
Yeah, I agree. I really felt like they were, like everybody was relaxed. You could really tell that they were having fun.
Yeah. Doing
this episode, and exploring these other characters and and just wiling out a little bit, that it was great because it came through. It really came through.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I was going to ask, because I think you brought up this important point about how, like, especially how Black love and how Black families are represented then in television. How do we feel then about the fact that this is young Rukiya's last episode, at least in the sense that she has now like evolved and become this other being? I was surprised that maybe the character may not continue on into the rest of the episodes, or that this arc has been now closed I guess in this part of the season. Did we feel that that she got a good send off, or that we felt like this was like a satisfying ending or a point in the character's development?
Yeah, I sort of did. I mean, I knew that at some point they were going to have to resolve this daughter issue, like with the canon that has already been established, right? I felt like the pacing of it was perfect, because I feel like if they had kept that child in that buffer for much longer, like you can't have like the ghost in the machine traveling around the whole season. Like that's just that's going to get tired really fast. The kid is either going to find a cure for her, and she's going to be amongst the crew, and now we're going to have a kid on the Enterprise, which nobody ever knew about. Or they're going to have to find some other solution. So I felt like it was a really cool solution that they found for her. And also totally leaving the door open, since these beings are out of time and space, we could see her as a child again. There's plenty of room for them to bring that actress back, especially like in callbacks and memories and Dr. Mabenga's memories or dreams. you know, or even, like I said, like even out of time and out of phase, you know, like she could come back. But I felt like both of the actresses who played her, you know, when she was younger and when she was older, that I felt like they both did a phenomenal job. They were
Yes.
both really enchanting. And then the young,
Mhm.
what's her name?
Oh, Sage
Sage
Arundel.
Arundel.
Uh-huh.
She's so enchanting. That
Yeah.
little young lady has so
Mhm.
much charisma on that screen. Like every time she was on the screen, it was hard to look away. You didn't want to
Mhm.
look away. You just wanted to see, you know, I mean, wonderful. Just so I think that, you know, there's room. So I'm happy with it. I don't feel like they killed her off too fast or anything. And they didn't really kill her
They didn't
off at
kill her
all.
Right.
off.
They
No.
didn't kill her off at all. I don't feel like they got rid of her. I don't feel like we're saying goodbye forever,
Mm-mm.
you know, but I also feel like in order for Dr. Mabenga's character to move on, we really had
Yes.
to bring some
Mhm.
type of resolution to
Yep.
the situation with his daughter, because otherwise he was going to be trapped in that moment. And the rest of the cast was going to be surpassing him. And then we were going to get a one-dimensional Mabenga.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I agree. And it's the first season. So I think we get so stuck in these arc shows, these season-long arc shows, that we forget that these are just one-offs and they close them. And hopefully next season we'll get another arc, you know, another show with her as somebody that's going to help them when they go through another nebula or something, you know, because there's nebulas everywhere.
Word.
So I mean, you know, I loved it. I loved it. I think it was just so, I loved it. I loved those two actors that played the daughters, the way they loved him, the way, I just, you know, we have a show, one of the first shows we did that had a guest was Ciroc Lofton. And it was called Black Love. And the Black Love was mainly his Ciroc and Ben's love for each other. And this just brought me back to that love between a parent and a child. I just loved everything about it, you know, as being a child and then being as a parent. I saw that, you know, you see yourself in that human framework, like Tamia said, you don't get to see enough of, and portrayed well.
Portrayed
You
well,
know, and
right.
portrayed well, you know, just regular humans. I mean, she did turn into a prophet, but you know what I'm talking about.
I loved how supportive he was of her transformation. It wasn't like, oh, I've missed out on this chunk of your growth, or you have to come back, or like he was totally, obviously they're gonna miss each other, but he was like, no, okay, this is your life now, and you get to have this new experience and I, you know, and he was completely supportive of it. And I was like, that's cool, you know, that it wasn't like that, it was like, oh, you need to be here, you need to be with me, or you need to stay, or, you know, I'm sorry that I missed out on all this time. It's like, no, you've because she's like, well, for me, I got to travel, like I've been out in this space now and existing and had these other experiences. And I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was like a really unpossessive, you know, love, you know, which I found was really beautiful, you know.
Yes.
I mean, I get that part. I'm listening to you guys say this. I'm like, you know, parents are really good at saying, oh, baby, I'm so happy for you. This is great. But we could be dying inside, you know, like, don't leave me.
Yeah.
I believe that. And, you know, that's what good parents do. You know, you just say, as long as you're happy, that's all that, and it is all, that's all that matters. But, you know, parents are still going, oh no. You know, so yeah, I laughed when you guys said that. I was like, okay.
Like, I know what's going on inside of him.
Inside he's dying.
Well, I felt like they showed that. I felt like he did a really wonderful job portraying that moment.
Yeah, he did.
Of letting go, you know, and the struggle that was happening internally. Like you could see that he didn't want to. He really wanted his baby girl, and he really wanted to have those years and all the rest of those experiences. But at the same time, what was he going to do?
Right. Yeah. That's what you're here for, to make sure they're safe.
Y'all know what I kept thinking about the whole time during that part? Sting. I kept thinking about Sting. If you love somebody, set them free.
If you love someone.
Right, exactly.
Okay. We're not going to talk about Sting, because, you know, before Sting started doing Set Them Free, if you love somebody, he was singing Every Breath You Take.
That's right.
Yeah, this is so true.
Okay.
He grew
and he had all those people using that for their wedding songs. I'm like, wait a minute.
I know, it was really psychopathic,
know what he's really
right?
saying.
Like, I'll
Don't
be
stand
watching you,
so
girl.
close to me. Yeah.
Man.
Sting's got a whole array of
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
Right, the
He
whole
was-
evolution. Oh my
song.
God.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
don't sing anymore. I don't know if we're gonna start owing people money.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
One last thing I wanted to bring up here that I really appreciated is at the start of this episode when they again, more of those incredible visuals in Strange New Worlds, when they first end up arriving at this nebula, and you can see like the gas cloud and everything out there, and Pike makes this comment. He's like, I could just do this would be great. We like the action, whatever, it's just out here finding these cool things and exploring. And I love that because there are a couple times where I feel like in some of the other franchises, when they're doing the exploration part, they almost make the actors or the characters comment on how bored they are. They're like, what is it? Oh, is it just another comet? Oh, fine. Is it? Oh, it's just another nebula. It's just more radiation. And I was like, but that's why you're here. You're explorers. And I love that when they find new phenomenon in Strange New Worlds, or they find something like this nebula, they're all like, oh, this is cool. We're doing the exploring, and this is what we're here for, not the shooting and the action and everything else, but we just want to learn about things that are new.
I definitely was happy that they actually said that, because I think that's getting lost in a lot of Trek. I know they always try to go back to it, but I did love that.
Yeah, I loved it too. I love the optimism, the joy, just the sheer joy of being out there and finding something new in this life. I think they capture that really well. But I also think, though, that some of the other shows have the benefit of coming after these first crews, right? Like by the time these other shows get on, their crews are out there. The Federation has been around for a long time. Starfleet's been around for a long time. Like sometimes it is just like, after 200 years, like, yeah, it's another damn nebula. like, okay, whoop-dee. Okay, we've seen that. I've kind of studied this a million times, and I get like in a way, I get that, but I also understand what you mean. It's like that we don't necessarily have to call it out so much in the writing. Right. Because this is still Star Trek, and what we do is get excited about the unknown, and this is what we're trying to show people, that it's okay not to know everything. It's even more exciting to discover and find out and learn new things, and not to be afraid of the things that we don't know. So that's cool. I get you.
Yeah, to embrace the wonder.
Yeah.
Fansets merchandise, as we know, is the leader in pin collectibles for Star Trek, but they offer more than that. In addition to Star Trek, you can find pins for The Big Bang Theory, Scooby-Doo, DC Comics, Batman 66, Harry Potter, and Rick and Morty.
As a listener to the show, you can receive 10% off your next order from Fansets by using code TrekGeeks, that's all capital letters, at checkout. And remember that you receive free shipping in the US on orders over $30 or more. Fansets, our pins have character, and we thank Fansets for being a presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks podcast network.
Starfleet Command is proud to present you the Christopher Pike Medal of Valor.
Medals and awards. Tamia, why don't we start with you? Because you were already talking about awards. Where are they going?
I have many, but I'm going to try to keep it. Okay, so the first one I want to give out is to the costuming.
Oh, yeah.
The costuming, all of them. Costuming. Everybody's costume was amazing. I just felt like I love the Queen's costume. Bernadette Croft. She was amazing. And I was watching the Ready Room, seeing their whole design process, where it made me even more in love with what they did and what they were able to pull off. And the fashion of it, everything that they designed was amazing and beautiful to look at. And I really wanted to wear. And did you see how the Queen, when she went and sat on the throne and the skirt split open, it was those white pants on the with the heels. I was like, what?
I was like, wait, what?
You better stop.
What's going on here?
Y'all better work. Y'all better work. It was everything. It was everything. Like, but I love so costuming, they get my first medal.
Yeah.
My second one goes to 3 actors all together, and that's Christina Chong and Melissa Navia and Anson Mount.
Those fools.
Yes, exactly. Those fools. I mean, Christina Chong as that spoiled princess with the dog had me dying.
Runa.
Her dog was awesome too. Runa's in there too.
I love Runa.
But I mean, Christina Chong just really blew my socks off with her character. It was so, I mean, she was dynamic and it was hilarious and wonderful. And then of course, Melissa and Anson together were just too funny for words. And then my other medal goes to the writers, right? To Akilah Cooper and Onitra Johnson for bringing this amazing, beautiful story to life. So those are my medals this week. I could go on ad nauseum about it, and I shall not, because I feel like you guys are going to say pretty much a lot of the same things that I would have said anyway. So
yeah,
your turn.
Mine is pretty similar to Tamia's, but I'm only going to give out one award, even though there are many, but I'm going to give out one award to the two writers. You could tell that this was written by Trek fans. This was a love letter to not only the characters, but there was a love letter to Trek fans, I believe, especially those who love M'Benga. I mean, we got a M'Benga episode. M'Benga had a few words in was it Private Little War? And I don't know, he was in another one. I can't remember what it was, but that's all we got. But as Black people, we know M'Benga. We know he was there, and it was wonderful to have even this whole season, just having him, but to have this type of episode where he was the king. And I love the fact, I mean, everything about it, just the book. I love DS9 so much, and I hate the fact that DS9 is always on the back burner for everything Star Trek. Picard this season, I hate to say this, but they use Star Trek, our beloved Star Trek characters, as fodder.
Yes, they did.
And I did not appreciate that at all. You put you using, it was just terrible. And it kind of broke my heart, but to put this book out, and I've been dying to find out what this book was about. And then to find out it was written by Benny Russell. I mean, you just warmed our little Deep Space Nine hearts. I mean, we're just like, what? This is all we needed, some respect for our series, because I feel like we don't get it. But that's for another podcast. I just love that the story really went. It was very campy. It was great. It was very TOS. I loved it. I mean, I think I'm going to love TOS more and more because of Strange New Worlds. And I find that I'm going back to look at some of the episodes. I just have a little more appreciation for TOS. And I like I said before, I think this is an instant classic because it had these one-liners that were just popping off, and they were great. And like I said, there's going to be memes everywhere for this thing. But it just was a very well done script. It had everything in it, everything. And I've seen Star Trek movies that didn't have this much goodness in it. But that's who my award goes to. It goes to the two writers. I think they did a phenomenal job. They wrote two really good stories, and they're two stories that could have been just one episode each, but I appreciate them. I really appreciate the love for DS9 too. It just blew me away. So
awesome. Thank you. Probably covering similar ground here, but yeah, I was also going to give a shout out to the writers. This is one of the first times where after an episode, I went back and I tried to find out more about the writers. I wanted to have a similar impact with a Star Trek story. It would be like this is the kind of heart in it I would want to be able to have. And so I had done some quick searching online, and I had quickly looked up Akilah Cooper. And then it was around that time, actually, Tamia, that then you sent me the link to that blog. And I was like, oh yes, exactly. This shines through exactly in this episode. So Melissa Navia for pulling off some awesome sword fighting this episode, because that is super cool.
Yeah.
And then a couple times now I've thrown out awards to Babs Olusan Mukun.
Yes.
And I'm going to do so again this episode, because that last it was so many feelings in that last scene with Rukiya. And one of the main reasons why I was always drawn to Star Trek as a younger person was trying to find some chosen family in some father figures on
Mhm.
on a show. Like that was what a big thing for me. I was trying to find some familial connection because I needed that when I was younger. Like I would want Benga as a dad. Like
Hell yeah.
like that would be amazing, you know, like so supportive and loving and gentle and just and supportive of your journey and where you're going. And I was like, who doesn't need that in their life? Any last thoughts before we wrap up? I just want to say, first of all, that I'm so glad I get to do this with both of you. This is awesome.
Yes.
This is awesome.
It is awesome.
It
like
is.
we have to do more of this incarnation in the future on other shows, you know.
Absolutely.
I watched this episode quite a few times, and I didn't find out about the title of the book until like today. So every thoughts I had before like totally changed. You know, my track of thinking about this episode totally changed today, and I was just overwhelmed by the DS9 love. That pretty much that's all that I can remember right now. But like I said, there's just so much going on here. I love this. I think I love the book, the part. I love that before I found out who the author was. But I just love the fact that when they kept showing, you know, the pictures and how they went with the character and the crewmen. I loved all of that. I even loved Mitchell. I think that was Mitchell. That's her name, Mitchell, right?
Yeah.
The navigator. I love that she was part of it too. I thought that was perfect. You know,
big scar across the eye and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I was like, what did she been through?
Right.
But I love that even she was a part of it, because I love those little characters. You don't know where they're, you know, DS9, you know, you see a picture, a character once, and then next thing you know, they got an arc that's better than the lead characters, you know.
Right.
So hopefully we'll see more Mitchell too. So
Yeah.
the theme of this episode was good. It was just good.
I like the aspect of the sacrifice, right? You know, but not like in a romanticizing, you know, what the sacrifice is sort of way. I mean, it was really, you could tell that it was hurtful, you know, but I mean, it was that love for a parent for a child, that I would do anything to see them, you know. It just really hit me. I thought it was really poignant because I believe that not everybody is so lucky to be loved like that. I have been very lucky to be loved like that, and I have been very unlucky to not be loved like that. I mean, that if that makes sense, you know. I have different parents and different experiences with them, and also like I never met my biological father until I was 19, you know. Like, I mean, I was raised by my stepfather, and not for like want of like anybody being like, oh no, I'm going to keep you away from your dad. It wasn't like that, you know. It just, when I was ready to meet him, I asked, and you know, and he was there.
Wow.
Right.
I look upon that relationship with her and Dr. Mabenga as her father, and I yearn for that still, like as a grown woman, you know. I yearn for that true, pure connection that I never really had. I mean, I had it with my father a little bit, but I mean, I have like 4 half sisters, right? And they got most of that time, you know, with my dad. There's so many feels, and that's what I think is so powerful about this episode, is that it doesn't just fit the one mold, you know.
Exactly.
You know, but I do have another parent who loves me, you know, without reservation. Yvette knows my mother vicariously, you know. Linda, hi Linda. She loves me unreservedly, and I know that I put her through so much hell in this lifetime, and she still said, you know, go do your thing, right? You know, like, and I can't. And so when I watch this episode too, it makes me think of like, wow, what was that doing to her during all that time when I was out there being crazy, you know? And she loved me enough to let me be my own human being.
Told you, it's the hardest part of being a parent.
Right. You know, and not to try to, you know, and our relationship is not ruined because she didn't try to strangle me and keep me in one place. You know what I'm saying? That respected me enough to go out and make my own mistakes. So, you know, I don't know. I love that theme of this episode. And I love that they could deliver such a heavy theme in such a light way. You know, I mean, we can ingest it. It's not so so heavy. First of all, I wasn't crying the whole episode. I was only crying part of the episode.
The beginning and the end.
Right. And I was able to laugh, and my characters weren't crying the whole episode, I was able to laugh. I think they just really did it really masterfully. Yeah. And I think it's going to stay and keep percolating inside of me. It's one of those ones that I think is going to stay with me for a long time.
Oh yeah, it's a classic, an instant classic. Right. I believe that. And can I add just one thing? Everything you said about that, I love the fact that you said our characters show that family love. I love that it's us. I love that it's us. The color of those people are our color. That it just makes it seem like I think I've said this before on our podcast. I feel like we're never seen as humans. We're magical, we're angry, we're everything, but just plain old human beings that, go day to day. And I love the fact that this was portrayed by a Black man and a Black child. I just think that, to me, it just made it more poignant. So
yeah, I feel like there's a lot of work that needs to be done to normalize what is actually our normal experiences. Right. I felt like there's a lot of energy that's been expended into making the myth of the Black man and the myth of the Black woman, which is like when you watch the news, like who do you see, whose picture is being shown as portraying all the crime, as perpetrating all the crime in the city? Like other people don't perpetrate crimes, but it's all you see are Black folks. Like we're the only ones out there doing crime, raising hell in the world, and it's not true. And it's mathematically impossible that these crime rates, that we are responsible for these high crime rates all by ourselves. This is the myth that is perpetrated. Right. The angry Black woman myth is perpetrated consistently, repeatedly in mainstream media. And then the Black man as drug dealer, or the Black man as violent. These are the images that you see of Black people over and over and over and over and over again.
Or the absent father.
Right. Or the abusive mother, or that
does not have a color.
Right. I remember watching big network weekend shows one day. I woke up and it was on, and I was like, and they were had this feel good story section where they literally run all these people. I've watched the show 3 weeks in a row, right? And they run these stories about all these good things happening in this country, all these things, great things that people are doing for each other, right? Nice things in the middle of the pandemic, or, in the middle of the recession. So, do you know only one of those stories? They were doing 6 packages at a time, right? I saw one in 3 weeks that had a Black person in it. And you know what that Black person was doing? He was a delivery guy who did something nice for some white person, when he made their delivery. 3 weeks. So this is what I'm talking about, that there's a lot of effort being expended to make sure that Americans and other people around the world think of Black people as only one way.
Yep.
That's why a show like this episode is so valuable and so important. And that's why we need more, because it normalizes in the eyes of a mainstream audience who and what we are. Now, I'm not saying that we have to go around and try to justify our existence to anybody, right? And I'm not saying that I need anybody's damn approval for my existence. But what I am saying is that the only way to counter a targeted attack against who we are is to tell our side. And this is why it's important that we are in these positions as writers and producers on these shows. Definitely. And so, this particular episode of the show is just the bomb because it exists and because of the way in which they executed their vision. Yeah,
totally agree. Matthew?
I'm just so glad that you're the two that I'm doing this episode with, because the portrayal of Black characters, of Black love, this is something that I can appreciate by seeing it as that other part of the other mainstream viewership as you're talking about, but I can't speak to it on that personal level. But I'm so grateful that I get to hear it in, within the context of this episode live. And so I'm very grateful that both of you are here to talk about it and to share it. And thank you for sharing that. Really, really appreciate it. And I'm just so glad that Star Trek is making these things go forward, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
We want to talk about pushing back actual frontiers.
Yeah.
But
Right?
this is the stuff that I'm really excited about that Star Trek can do.
Yes, this is the good stuff. This
Yeah.
is it. Yeah.
This is
They
awesome.
definitely have lived up, because I was very worried, they have definitely lived up to the hype, and it is so far turning out to be what we hope for. The series we hope for.
Library computer, data being received.
Don't forget that you can support Discovering Trek and the Trek Geeks Podcast Network by subscribing to bonus content on Patreon. Get access to unedited audio of all our podcasts and of a lot of other perks. If you'd like to support this and the other member podcasts of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, beam on over to patreon.com/Trek Geeks, where subscriptions start at low as $2 per month. For more great Star Trek discussion, check out the aforementioned member podcasts on the network. In addition to Discovering Trek, there is Trek Geeks, Rewind, Polytreks, 5-Year Mission, Deep Space Pride, Drawn to Trek, Infinite Trek, The Divine Treasury, SyFy Sistas, Science Station 2, with the first link and the newest addition to the network, Con Pod, about Star Trek conventions. You can find all these shows and where to listen on trekgeeks.com/listen or by downloading the Trek Geeks mobile app.
Music for Discovering Trek is provided by 5-Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Discovering Trek is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Next week, all those that wander, the USS Enterprise crew comes face to face with their demons and scary monsters too when their landing party is stuck on a barren planet with a ravenous enemy. That's it for episode 8, The Elysian Kingdom, written by Kayla Cooper and Onitra Johnson and directed by Amanda Rowe. Remember that you can find more of my co-hosts Yvette and Tamia on the SyFy Sistas and more of me on TNG Podcast with the First Link. Both SyFy Sistas and With the First Link are podcasts here on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. Discovering Trek Strange New World Episode 9 is already recorded at the time of this recording and should be out later this week to sync up with the finale of Strange New World Episode 10, the season finale. Trek Geeks, nobody talks Trek like we do.